Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Let me thank all of you for coming out tonight. And let me, we have had hundreds of thousands of volunteers in this campaign, and I know that many of them are here tonight. Thank you all very much for your help. And let me thank Senator Nina Turner. Nina believes in what she calls heart-soul politics. And she has been with me all over this country. She has been doing a fantastic job. And the only thing that I don't like about Nina is following her. That's always a hard thing to do. But I love Nina, and we're going to continue working together. Now, the main point that I'm going to make tonight, and I'm going to make it over and over again, and Nina just made it, is this political revolution is not about Bernie Sanders, it's not about Nina Turner, it is about you and millions of other people. And what the political revolution means is that you are the revolutionaries. And what this campaign has shown, not just in winning 13 million votes, but in taking on the establishment all over this country, what it has shown is that millions of people are prepared to stand up, fight back, and create the nation we know we can become. All of you know, who have studied history, that election days come and go, but what is much more important is that political and social revolutions continue. And that our goal from day one has been to transform this nation, and that is the fight we are going to continue. And if you think about American history, think about 100 years ago, right here in New York City, Triangle Fire killed hundreds of workers. But workers stood up and they fought back all over this country. Workers told their employers that it is not acceptable to be employing children in factories who are losing their fingers and their hands around machinery they should not be around. Workers said that we are going to have decent working conditions. We are going to form unions. And the struggle for a strong trade union movement, which all of us must be part of, continues today, because we know without a strong trade union movement, there will not be a strong middle class in this country. And I want you all to be thinking about how many workers stood up, went to jail, some died in the fight to create the kind of trade union movement that helped create the American middle class. Think about the civil rights movement. Think about the facts. Think about the number of people whose names we will never know. People who were killed, people who were beaten, people who were jailed, standing up for human dignity and civil rights. They fought, and they fought. So if anyone tells you, hey, I was out on a demonstration, I'm all burned out. We didn't change the world overnight. I'm giving up. Think about those people who struggled decade after decade, gave their lives, and sometimes died in that struggle. Think about the women's movement. Think about the fact, and this is what revolution is about. 100 years ago, women in America did not have the right to vote. Did not have the right to get the education or the jobs they wanted in America all of 100 years ago. But women did not accept that. They did not allow the establishment to define their lives. They determined to define their own lives. They stood up and they fought back. That was 100 years ago. Think about movements that are taking place right now. Think about the gay movement in America. Think about Stonewall. Think about the revolutionary changes that have taken place because the gay community and their straight allies said that in America, people should have, must have, the right to love whoever they wanted, regardless of gender. And I want you all to remember, and I was there, I'm a little bit older than many of you, and I was there, and I heard the hostility, and I heard the ugliness, and I heard the hatred, but people stood up proudly and with dignity, and they continued the fight for gay rights. And today you go out, and this is what a revolution is about. You go out and you talk to young people in this country, and you say something like, do you believe in gay marriage? And they say, duh. What are you talking about? What's the problem? That's when you have a revolution. Think about the fight for 15. All right? And this is still going on. It's right in front of us. If we were here 5 years ago, no time at all, and somebody jumped up, and I want you to think about this, and said, Bernie, the $7.25 federal minimum wage is a starvation wage, and we've got to raise it to, say, $15 an hour. Person next to her would have said, you're nuts. You're asking too much. You want to more than double the minimum wage, which is a pretty damn big demand. But what happened was that people working in the fast food industry, in McDonald's and Burger King and in Wendy's, you know what? They stood up. They went out on strike. They demonstrated, and I was very proud in D.C. to have been out there demonstrating with them. And what they told the American people from their hearts, and I listened to them, is we can't make it on $8 or $9 an hour. Do the arithmetic. Try to feed a family on $10 an hour. You can't do it. We need $15 an hour. And then as that idea percolated throughout this country, then in Seattle, Some very brave city councilors got up there and they said, you know what? We're going to pass $15 an hour. And then the folks in San Francisco and Los Angeles, $15. And in California and New York State, $15. All right. So here is the point. What the system is designed to do, what corporate media is designed to do, is to tell you that we cannot achieve real change. That the only thing that you can accept is incremental, tiny little changes. And what our campaign has been about and is about is saying, sorry, we're thinking big, we want real change. And here is what together we are accomplishing. A year ago, the ideas that we brought forth, people said, the critics said, our opponents said, well, these are radical ideas. Nobody in America supports these ideas. Well, turns out a majority of the people in this country support these ideas. Real change is not easy, and real change never takes place from the top on down, always from the bottom on up. And that is what our political revolution is all about. It is not, and I'm a senator, so I have a huge ego. That's by definition when you're a senator. Huge, right? Ego, yeah. Tomorrow, I'm going to be in Syracuse, New York, campaigning for a guy who is running for the United States Congress. I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure he wins. We're going to go back to California and campaign for a woman running for the state Senate in California, and I think she's going to win. We're going to go all over this country because that is what the political revolution is about. It's not about me. It is about people at the grassroots level. It is about people running for school board, for city council, for mayor, for state legislature, for Congress, for the Senate. But it is millions of people getting involved in the political process in a way that we have never seen in the modern history of this country. Last Thursday, I don't know if some of you saw it, I did an internet streaming speech. And here's what the point that I want to make. We did the speech and I said to people, look, we have got to build a grassroots movement. We need you and you and you to get involved at the local level. Do you know how many people have signed up? We've got a lot of work to do. 20,000 people in every state in this country. 20,000 people said they are prepared to run for office or help other people run for office. And I hope many of you are involved in the same way. And the reason I think that there is so much interest in running is people are catching on that the ideas that they have and have had for many years are in fact mainstream ideas, that millions of other people support those ideas. And the other thing that we learned is, you know what? You can beat the establishment. They are not quite as powerful as some make them out to be. We won, and hear this, in every state, certainly here in New York State, we had to take on virtually the entire Democratic establishment. You know, that's not just New York State, that is true in every state in this country, and yet we ended up winning 22 of those states. And I have no doubt that a strong, well-organized grassroots movement can take on the establishment and can defeat the establishment. And that is precisely what we have got to do and what the political revolution is about. And there's something else that I am enormously optimistic about, and that is that in this campaign, not widely reported, but in this campaign, in every single state, we won, often by big numbers, the votes of young people, the future of America. And by young people, I'm not just talking about the 20-year-olds or the 25-year-olds. I'm talking about people 45 years of age and younger. Now think about what that means for the future of our country. What it means is that our vision, a vision of economic, social, racial, environmental justice, is the vision of the people who will create the future of America. In this campaign, hundreds of thousands of volunteers made 75 million telephone calls. And we are just getting started. Our volunteer canvassers knocked on over 5 million doors. We hosted, and some of you, I expect, did the hosting, 74,000 meetings in every state and territory in America. And what we showed is that you can run a powerful campaign without being dependent on Wall Street and super PACs. somebody, and one of the things that has humbled me, I read an article, and frankly, I couldn't even read the whole article because it was so moving, and I just, couldn't become at that moment emotional. I had to stay focused. But what the article was about, they did an analysis. I don't even know how the hell you do it, but they did an analysis of the 2.5 million people who made some 8 million individual campaign contributors. And what they found, and this kind of blew me away, I didn't know this, is that a majority of those contributors were below median income in this country. I mean, in other words, these were not people making hundreds of thousands of dollars and flipping $50, and that's great. We appreciate that. But these were people making it on $15,000 or $20,000 a year. These are people unemployed. These are senior citizens trying to make it on $10,000, $12,000 a year, Social Security. The point that I make, no, not about me. No, it's not. No, it's not. It is and has to be about us, not me. But the point that I'm making when we talk about us, I want you to know that there are people out there trying to make it on $10,000 a year who felt so strongly about what we together are trying to accomplish. They made a $10 contribution, which to me is means a lot more than some millionaire giving us $2,000. But I want you to know that those people are out there. They believe in what we are doing. All right. What this campaign is about is having the courage that every one of us has to understand that we're not going to allow corporate media to define the issues for us. We together are going to define the issues. And it means that we have to understand that corporate media will never allow us to talk about reality in America. We have to figure out, and we did this as well, through social media, beginning to talk about reality. And what this campaign, the issues that we raise, which are already becoming mainstream issues, is talking about a campaign finance system which is corrupt, and that's the only word. And what corrupt means is right now, literally right now, the Koch brothers are spending over $40 million on Senate campaigns in order to try to keep the Republicans, right-wing Republicans, in charge of the Senate. Our job, and this is a big job, it doesn't happen tomorrow. It's not just overturning Citizens United. Of course we have to do that. It is not just ending Republican governors' voter suppression efforts. And of course we have to do that. What it is about, and this is not easy stuff, and we have got to do it together, is revitalizing American democracy. And that takes so many forms. I mean, one of the forms it takes is that right here in New York State, 3 million New Yorkers were denied the right to vote in the Democratic and Republican primaries I mean, it doesn't take a politically sophisticated person to figure out that that whole effort on the part of the Democratic and Republican leadership in this state is about making it harder for people to get involved in the political process. And in a few weeks, right now, we have a great committee. We have 5 people on the platform committee for the Democratic Convention. We have great people, great people. We're going to have great people on the Rules Committee. And one of the issues we're going to be fighting for on the Rules Committee is to end closed primaries. It is also a fight to end the absurd situation where superdelegates can ignore the will of their constituents. We, in some states, won 70, 80% of the vote, and you got superdelegates who are not respecting the democratic will of their people. We are going to change that. And in fact, while we're at it, we may as well transform the entire Democratic Party. And that means, what that means is forcing open the door for ordinary people, for working people and young people, rather than allowing wealthy campaign contributors to be running that party. What this campaign will always be about is ending the grotesque level of income and wealth inequality in this country. I have repeated these numbers a million times, but every time I say it and I look at it and I think about it, it disgusts me. It disgusts me that we have a situation today where the top 1/10 of 1% owns as much wealth as the bottom 90%. Where 20 individuals own more wealth than the bottom half of America, 150 million people. Where in America today, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, the bottom 40% of our people own nothing, and many of them are in debt below water. Our job is to create an economy that works for all of us, not just Wall Street and the top 1%. Some people think that it is idealistic, that it is utopian to talk about creating a moral economy in which the function of the economy is to provide well for the children and the elderly and working families and the middle class. I don't think that that is idealism. I think that is the practicality of what we have got to do, and do it now. And we can do it. What we must never allow ourselves to succumb to is walking the streets of New York City, and I was in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago. It's unbelievable. People sleeping all over the streets. Honest to God, I walked past the guy. I didn't even know if he was, it's not funny. It was tragic. He was lying down there. I didn't know if he was alive or dead. In the United States of America. We cannot allow ourselves to become used to the fact that we got hundreds of thousands of children in this country who are homeless. That is our greatest danger, becoming used to it and thinking that it is normal. It is not normal. It is an outrage. And never, ever lose your sense of outrage. I visited, when I was in South Dakota, very beautiful state, I visited the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Anyone know anything about Pine Ridge? The life expectancy of people in the Pine Ridge Native American Reservation today is lower than many third world countries. Drug addiction, alcoholism, unemployment, poverty, those numbers are literally off the charts. Unbelievable. And yet it continues year after year. I was in McDowell County, West Virginia. Anyone know McDowell County? Very small area in the southern part of West Virginia. West Virginia is a poor state. In McDowell County, the life expectancy is 18 years less than it is in Fairfax County, Virginia, 6 hours away. 18 years less. There are now millions of Americans in McDowell County and many other parts of this country whose life expectancy is lower today than was the life expectancy of their parents. What this is about is the despair that so many people are seeing in many parts of this country through high unemployment, through low wages, through a horrific standard of living. People are giving up. They are turning to drugs and opiates. They are turning to alcohol, and they are committing suicide. This is going on in America today. This is ahistorical. In other words, what has happened all over the world, virtually all over the world, certainly in wealthier countries, is we live longer for a variety of reasons than our parents did. We expect our kids to live longer than we do. In many parts of this country, because of the despair, that is not happening. Low wages, high unemployment. People are giving up on life. We cannot ignore those issues. We are going to address those issues. We are going to give hope back to people who have lost hope. You know, I think most Americans would agree that when we talk about what constitutes a great nation, it is not the number of billionaires that you have. It is not the number of nuclear weapons that you have. It is how you treat the most vulnerable people in the country. And year after year after year, the numbers cry out at us. This country today has the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. These children are the future of this country, and they are growing up in extremely bad conditions. Housing is inadequate. Nutrition is inadequate. Childcare is inadequate. That is not acceptable. If you're a patriotic person who loves this country, you got to love the children of this country. There are schools, think about this, and I went all over the country and I learned a lot in that process. There are schools in America where more of the kids in those schools end up in jail than they do graduating college. Maybe it's time for us to invest in jobs and education for our young people, not jails and incarceration. This is an American tragedy. We have 2.2 million people in jail, disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native American people are rotting in jails, and their children and spouses back home are hurting as well. We need major reform of a broken criminal justice system. I was in, just a few weeks ago, in the Delano, Fresno area of California. And that is where they grow a lot of the food that we eat. In fact, I had the honor of visiting the house where Cesar Chavez fasted many decades ago. Cesar Chavez went on a fast to protest working conditions and the pesticides that farm workers were exposed to. Well, this is what I learned. In many respects, things are a bit better. But the exploitation of undocumented workers remains horrific today. You got thousands and thousands of workers there, and many more all over this country, who are being exploited every single day. They're being cheated of their wages. They're facing awful working conditions, and they cannot stand up and fight back because they are undocumented and have no legal rights, which is why we need comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. And what I also learned, I didn't know this. You know, you go around the country and you see things and you learn things. I didn't know this. I was in Flint, Michigan, and I won't even tell you what I saw in Flint because that was so upsetting. But I was in, again, this area, Delano area of California, and I didn't know that this was going on. Thousands of homes there, when people turn on the faucet, they cannot drink the water because it is toxic water. They are bathing in bottled water. And by the way, they still have to pay their water bills. So this whole issue, I didn't know, thousands and thousands of homes, they cannot drink the water that comes out of the tap. Which is why, by the way, yesterday we should have banned fracking, and we damn well should do it tomorrow. And I want you to know, I want you to know that in California, your brothers and your sisters there, I went to these Latino communities, they are standing tall, beautiful young people who are in the fight for justice. And we have got to stand with them. We've got to end the deportations. And what thinking outside of the box is about is, again, it's not accepting homelessness. It's not accepting 21% of our children living in poverty. It is also not accepting the reality that today we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a right. This is not an issue, I think, that any person on the other side can really debate because there's not much to be said. We have, despite the gains of the Affordable Care Act, 28 million people who still have no health insurance. Even more, including many in this room tonight, are underinsured with high deductibles and copayments. We lose, again, you don't hear much about this. This doesn't make CNN. It's not a big breaking news story. I touched the nerve there. I could see that. All right. But point is, tens of thousands of people die unnecessarily every year because they don't go to a doctor or a nurse when they should. In other words, I've talked to doctors all over this country, all over my own state, and they tell me people walk in the door and they're really, really sick. And the doctor says, why didn't you come here a year ago when you first saw your symptom? And the person will say, well, I didn't have any health insurance. I had a high deductible. I simply could not afford to come in here. Some of those people end up in the hospital if they are lucky. Others find themselves in a terminal situation and they die. We pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Now, you don't hear much about that on TV because all you see is pharmaceutical industry advertising day after day after day. And yet there are people, I want you to think about this from a moral perspective. There is medicine out there that can save people's lives. They cannot afford that medicine. They die or they become much sicker. What kind of morality is that? And then last year, The five major drug companies made $50 billion in profit. We must never, ever, ever lose the vision that health care is a right of all people. And please, I don't want to hear from the insurance companies and everybody else that we can't do it. If every country in Europe, if Canada could do it, the United States of America could do it as well. And by the way, just so you know, when you pass a Medicare for All single-payer program, we can save middle-class families thousands of dollars a year on their health care costs. You know what else we do? I mean, this is just thinking outside of the box. Think what America looks like when literally millions of people do not have to stay at jobs they hate, and the only reason they stay there is they have decent health insurance. Think of the kind of entrepreneurial spirit that could be unleashed. Think about small businesses not having to spend half their life worrying about health insurance and can pay attention to what their business is supposed to be about. And you know, I was very proud, you know, there's a million polls that go out there. I was very proud to see, you know, that now a majority of Democrats, in fact, support a Medicare for All single-payer system. And here is an issue that together we have brought to the fore, and it ain't never going to go away, and that is the understanding that in the year 2016, we have got to make public colleges and universities tuition free. I have no doubt, I have zero doubt that this is a fight we are going to win. The only question is whether we win it in the very near future or a few years from now. But all over this country, I am seeing young people say, wait a minute, this is insane. I am going to college, I'm doing my best, and I'm coming out of school $50,000 or $100,000 in debt. That is nonsense. It is unacceptable. Think about an America. This is not a radical idea. This is common sense. This is good for our economy in America, where people of all ages are able to go to school and get the education they need, the training they need. It makes us a much stronger country. And I think it makes a lot more sense to invest in education for all of our people than give tax breaks to billionaires. And what started a year ago as a radical idea, nobody thinks it's radical anymore. You know, I could give you 1,000 examples of this, but one comes to my mind. In Nevada, we had a young woman, I would say late 20s, who was working on our campaign. And she came up to me one day and she said, with tears in her eyes, she said, Bernie, before I worked on your campaign, I was making $10.45 an hour. And I'm afraid that's what I'm going to have to go back to. I have a daughter. And tears streaming down her eyes, she said, I don't know how we're going to make it on $10.45 an hour. Try bringing up a kid on $10.45 being a single parent. You can't do it. The arithmetic is not there. And that is the case for people all over this country. They're working incredibly long hours. Again, not something that the media will talk about. All of you know that 100 years ago, workers demonstrated and fought for a 40-hour work week. That was 100 years ago. We still have not reached a 40-hour work week. People are working. They're exhausted. I see the exhaustion on people's faces who are working 2 or 3 jobs. Couples who can't have kids, don't want to have kids because they can't be the parents that they want to be because they're both working so hard. And that is why we have got to make as a doctrine of what this country is about. If you work 40 hours a week, you are not going to live in poverty. We are going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And this is a movement which is gaining strength all over this country. We have got to see it happen in every state in America. And here's another lie that we have got to deal with. Every month, front pages of the newspapers say unemployment, more or less, 5%. Anybody believe that real unemployment is 5%? Here's the truth. The truth is that that is what we call official unemployment. Official unemployment does not include those people who have given up looking for work in high unemployment areas and those people by the millions who are working part-time when they want to work full-time. Add all that together, there's another government figure which doesn't get a lot of attention. Real unemployment is close to 10%. And there are communities, often in inner cities, where unemployment is a hell of a lot higher than that. And that means to me that we need a federal jobs program and the smartest thing to do is to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, our water systems, our wastewater plants, our rail system, our mass transportation system, our roads and our bridges. We can create 13 million good-paying jobs. And you know what else we need to do when we talk about infrastructure is build affordable housing in this country. There are millions of people in America, millions of people who are paying 40, 50, 60% of their limited incomes on housing. If you spend 50% of your income on housing, you don't have money to do anything else with. Do not accept that people should be spending half of their income simply to put a roof over their head. Let's build millions of units of affordable housing and put our people to work doing that. Now, a corrupt campaign finance system breeds corrupt public policy. So right now, you have profitable corporations making billions of dollars a year in profit that in a given year put their money in the Cayman Islands and in other tax havens, and in a given year do not pay a nickel in federal taxes. Children sleep out on the street and are undernourished, and corporations do not pay a nickel in federal taxes. That together we are going to change. This campaign is about building a broad-based, grassroots campaign organization. This campaign is about bringing millions of people into the political process. This campaign is about empowering people to understand that democracy is not a spectator sport. And that when we stand together, we can transform this country. Right now, let me tell you, bring you up to date as to what we are trying to do. As we speak, literally, there are meetings of the Democratic Platform Committee. We have 5 great people on it. The platform that will come out of the Democratic Convention will be by far the most progressive platform in the history of the Democratic Party. But a platform is 50 or 60 pages of paper. That platform doesn't mean anything unless we make certain that those ideas are incorporated into public policy. And let me just tell you just a few. It's a 60-page document. We're still working on it. They're going to be in St. Louis this weekend. Then we're going to Orlando, where it's going to be a larger body of people. We're going to be offering all kinds of amendments. But for a start, we're going to take a hard look at our disastrous trade policies, make it clear that TPP is dead, not coming to the floor of the Congress. And when and appropriately enough in Orlando, we're going to fight to make certain that we ban the sale and distribution of assault weapons, that we end the gun show loophole, and expand instant background checks. It is really, you know, if you were talking to somebody from another world and you had to explain the Republicans' view on guns, and you say, well, we have lists in this country that keep people from getting on planes because we think they might be about blowing up the plane. But no problem, they can walk into a gun store and buy an assault weapon which can mow down people. People would think you were crazy if you tried to explain that, all right? So we are going to take on the NRA, and we're going to do everything we can. Now here is an example. Here is an example of an area where we have already begun to make real progress. 2 or 3 years ago, some of you may remember, you couldn't open up the front page of the paper without hearing about Bowles, Simpson, and all of these guys who thought it was absolutely appropriate to cut Social Security benefits. And it was not just Republicans. There were Democrats as well. We're going to cut. So what if people are trying to live on $11,000 a year? We're going to have to cut their benefits, extend the retirement age, etc. Well, you know what's happened? Since some of us have been raising this issue now, just coincidentally, a majority of Democrats think we should expand Social Security benefits. And when we talk about transforming America, everybody here understands that you don't bring about the changes that we need without taking on, in a very visceral way, the most powerful special interest in our country, and that means Wall Street. Our goal has got to be, it seems to me, twofold. And this may well be an issue. We're going to bring to the floor of the Democratic Convention. Let people vote on this one. And that is, number one, the establishment of a modern-day Glass-Steagall legislation. And number two, it is not just the greed and the recklessness and illegal behavior on Wall Street. We could talk about that forever. It is simply the power and the concentration of wealth that they have. You have a half a dozen banks that have assets that are equivalent to well over 50% of the GDP in this country. They write 2/3 of the credit cards and 1/3 of the mortgages in America. They have just unbelievable power. And they make money hand over fist. And there is, I don't think, much debate that their business model is fraud. How long do we have to tolerate that kind of greed, which has done so much harm to this country? And that is why, in my view, and I think in the view of a lot of Americans, we got to break them up. Right? Think again outside of the box, and think about a financial system where your credit card, if you're late in payment, you're not paying 15 or 20% interest rates. Think about a financial system which is there to actually lend money at affordable rates to small and medium-sized businesses. Think about a financial system which is not an island unto itself, designed only to make outrageous levels of profit. Now, one of the really, and you know, we live in a pretty crazy world. And I work in a pretty weird institution called the Congress. And this is what, you know, on top of a lot of other crazy things, we have people who come to the floor of the U.S. Senate. As a matter of fact, we even have a presidential candidate named Arizona. They have temperatures of 110, 120 degrees. You got forest fires. You got year after year, the temperature that the planet is experiencing is year after year the highest on record. We're looking at droughts. We're looking at forest fires, rising sea levels, acidification of the ocean. And you got people going forward and saying, oh no, there is no problem with climate. It's a hoax. Let me tell you something. This is may I use the word, huge. This is an issue that we have got to deal with and deal with yesterday, because we are looking at a situation where when you look at weather, you look at it over thousands of years, climate over thousands of years. We are seeing changes right now in front of our own eyes. I live on Lake Champlain. That lake used to freeze every winter. It doesn't freeze anymore. You are seeing an explosion of forest fires because trees are dying and the fires are spreading very, very rapidly. We have got to deal with this issue in a very aggressive way. That means a tax on carbon. And it means, and I want you again to think about what America looks like. We can create millions of jobs transforming our energy system. I have been in homes in Vermont where we brought in some money where they are cutting their fuel bills in half, cutting their carbon emissions in half because we have weatherized those older buildings. We can do this all over this country. We can, some really good news. I mean, despite how slowly we're moving out in Wyoming, right now they're in the process of building the largest wind farm in the world. We can have solar panels on tens of millions of rooftops in this country. And that is exactly what we've got to do. We've got to lead the world. This is not clearly just an American issue. It's an international issue. But I worry very much. I've got 7 beautiful grandchildren, and I will be damned if I'm going to leave them a world which is not habitable. When we look at what is going on in this world, it's not just climate change. What we have got to do is take a hard look at a lot of the waste that is in government, and there is a lot of waste, including the Department of Defense. And if we have not yet learned the dangers of arbitrary regime change, if we have not yet learned that, then shame on us. It is not good enough to be talking about overthrowing bad dictators, you got to be thinking about what happens the day after and the destabilization of the region. I am the former chairman of the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs, and in that capacity, I've had the opportunity not only to talk to many great veterans, I've talked to the Gold Star mothers and the wives of the parents of young people who never came home for war. I learned about the cost of war. And the cost of war is that today there are 500,000 people in this country who served in Iraq and Afghanistan who are dealing with the very serious problems of PTSD and traumatic brain injury. That's the cost of war on top of the 6,700 people and the hundreds of thousands of Iraqis and Syrians who have died as well. Let us never forget that war must be the last response, not the first response. Right now, what we have got to do is to make sure that our campaign is not just about defeating Donald Trump. Of course, we have got to defeat him, and I intend to do everything that I can if I have to run all over this country to do it. And that means we understand that Trump is it's hard almost to imagine a man who has such limited capabilities becoming president. And that means it's not just that this guy wants to give hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks. It's not just that he thinks that climate change is a hoax. What is even uglier is that you think about the struggles that we have gone through as a nation for hundreds of years, fighting against racism, fighting against sexism, and that this guy is making the cornerstone of his campaign is bigotry, is insulting Mexicans and Latinos, insulting Muslims, insulting women, insulting African Americans. Do not forget that Trump, before he was a candidate, was one of the leaders of the so-called birther movement. Don't forget that. And what that movement was about, that effort was about, was to delegitimize, not disagree, delegitimize the presidency of the first African American ever to hold that position. That was what that campaign was about. So we have got to work tirelessly to make sure that Trump is not president. But that is not good enough. What we have got to do is to continue the vision of transforming this country. And the most important way I know that we can do that is for all of us to get involved in the political process. We need great people on school boards, on city councils. You know what? It ain't that hard. You got a little nervous at first. You know, I ran for mayor of Burlington, Vermont in 1981. And if you don't tell anybody, keep this a secret between us, I had gone to one city council meeting in my life, and I fell asleep. It was so boring. And I had no clue about how you run water departments and electric departments and fire departments and police departments and parks departments. But you can learn. Second. So what we have got to do, and what the revitalization of democracy means, is getting your hands dirty. Don't be afraid of what you don't know. On your worst day, you'll likely know a lot more than some of these other guys who have the power today. So let me just conclude by thanking all of you, and the struggle continues. The struggle continues. Thank you all.